Hey there, audio friends. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're like me, which I assume you are in a lot of ways, then you have been getting your social media bombarded by these guys. These are the rock lobster IEMs that Apos has put out here recently. So they're, lobster headbanging. I don't know. It's an eye-catching social media campaign. So I was curious to try them. Apos reached out to me. They sent me these for free. I'm not having to return them. I don't have to pay for them or anything. But other than that, I'm not getting paid or anything like this, although I will use affiliate links down below for them if you do think this is a product that you would like to try out. And I think if you're a rock fan, I think you probably should be interested in trying these out. So I come from a background of a lot of rock. I listen to a lot of rock in the 90s, 2000s, things like that. And then I'm a big classic rock guy, still listen to a lot of classic rock. I'm more into the acoustic folk stuff now as kind of my main, but I still love me some good rock. So thinking about like a specifically rock-tuned IEM, I think is an interesting concept. And I think IEMs are kind of an interesting category in that, they are small enough and cheap enough a lot of the times that you may be a person that would want several IEMs for different genres of music and things like that. So I think it's kind of an interesting proposition. I'll be curious if they, have a jazz lobster, or I don't know, it probably won't be that, but rock lobster seems to have some sort of historical connotations. I looked it up and there were some things on it, but I didn't dive too deep into it, but there's probably a rabbit hole there if you want to explore. Anyway, let's take a look at these IEMs, all right? We'll talk about if they're any good. So as far as the build goes with these guys, I'd say it's pretty standard stuff for, an IEM of this price range. They're plastic, they have silicone tips. There's a little kind of interesting detail faceplate thing on here. The cable is braided. It's pretty thin. I didn't have any problems with it, but I've definitely used nicer IEM cables. I tend to like these. I'm not even sure what brand these are, but these like gel IEM cables just seem to work well for me. And these are just a typical 2-pin IEM. So, if you want to use some other cable, I think, it shouldn't be a problem to fit. And I'll go ahead and I'll link to these cables that I like down below in case you want to try one of them out. But for the most part, I found the fit and the comfort and the build and all that, I think is all perfectly fine. They do stick out of your ears, a little ways, but they're fairly lightweight. I don't have a problem with them at all. There are smaller IEMs out there. This is a Meze Alba, which I really like these IEMs. They've kind of been my go-to wired IEM, although I don't listen to a lot of wired IEMs right now. I do spend a lot of time listening to my AirPod Pro 2s, and we'll do some comparisons with that here later. But I guess all this is to say that I think it's perfectly adequate. If you look at kind of the driver cap there, the cap to it, it kind of has an interesting detail to it. They're red, lobster. I don't know. They're fine. The build's fine on them. I find them to be comfortable. Didn't have any issues there. I found the cable to work fine. Didn't have any issues there. None of it is real inspired from a design standpoint or a quality standpoint, but it is what you would expect for like $50, I would say. They didn't come with like a carrying case or anything like that. Like they do come with a few extra silicone tips. But it's pretty bare bones packaging for the most part, which is fine for this price. Again, no worries there. So how do they sound? And do they sound better than AirPod Pros? I would say the easy answer there is yes, they sound better than AirPod Pros. Of course, they aren't as convenient as AirPod Pros to use for me and probably for the majority of people. But yes, after listening to the Rock Lobsters for a decent amount of time and then switching to the AirPod Pros for comparison, I thought the AirPod Pros sounded like they lacked detail, they lacked separation, they lacked texture in the notes and all kind of that stuff that us audiophiles listen to. Where I think the Rock Lobsters excel, if you like bass, they do have a good amount of bass. I would I would say that it is obviously higher than neutral. It is a little bloomy, bloaty, but I think that's kind of fun in a lot of instances, and I think it meshes well with a lot of rock genres. I would say that they nailed the vocal timbre on this. So, like if you're into rock, then you probably got some vocals in there, but also this is where the guitar frequencies largely live, and so I would say they nail the guitar frequency. Riffs are powerful and textured and have plenty of detail in them. Quite enjoyable for the mid range. The upper end, I would say, while it is does provide a decent amount of detail for a $50 IEM. I would consider the highs to be a little pulled back. So it's definitely more tilting towards the lower end of things. And I would say that vocals are pulled a bit back as well. So I think all of this equates to a pleasurable rock listen, though. I listen to a variety of stuff, like I said, kind of like 90s grunge stuff and alt stuff, and then some classic rock stuff, and then I did my typical kind of acoustic folky stuff, and I enjoyed listening to all of it on these. I did switch to the Albas for a little bit to see how those compared. And these have much more top end. These are a much more neutral, much more flat, kind of balanced sound to them that I think can be a little bit much on some busy rock tracks. So I do think they did nail the tuning here, at least for what I'm looking for when I'm listening to rock of various genres. So I think it's worth a look. I think if it's worth a look whether you're a rock person or not. I think this is a very solid $50 IEM to look at. I wouldn't say that they do like spatial information or separation particularly well, but as far as just having a fun amount of bass, having good vocal and mid-range presentation, and not being too harsh on the upper end while still having some detail, I think these kind of fit the bill for that. So I found them to be a very enjoyable IEM while I've been listening to them. Now, how often will I reach for them? I don't know. Again, I'm not really a carry around wired IEMs type of a person anymore, but I do think these are, if you are that type of person, these are worth a look. I will say, too, kind of my favorite way to listen to them was with the Moondrop Dawn Pro dongle. This is just kind of my favorite dongle at this point in time. It doesn't match perfectly with everything. It's not a perfectly neutral dongle, but I do feel like it's a fun dongle, and when paired with these, I thought that was a really great listen. So you're talking under $100 and some very solid audio, certainly better than you're getting for AirPod Pros. I think I prefer the Gen 2s over the Gen 3 of AirPod Pros too, so I would assume that these guys would be better than those as well, even though I don't have the Gen 3 AirPod Pros. I sent those back at this point in time. So yeah, a worthy IEM from Apos here. I think it's definitely one that should be on your list if you're shopping for a $50 IEM. So again, thanks to Apos for sending this out. Thanks to you for watching, listening. I'll drop some of these links down below if you want to check them out. Awesome. If not, that's cool too. But either way, hopefully I will see you in the next one.